They say the smallest cracks make the loudest noises, and sometimes you don't even notice them until it's too late. I don't even remember when it started, the slow, creeping distance between Samuel and me. For so many years, he was everything a woman could ever hope for. Patient, kind, gentle, endlessly reliable. The kind of man you'd brag about to your friends, and quietly thank the universe for every night you got to fall asleep next to him. And maybe, just maybe, that was the problem. He was too perfect, and I had grown restless, impatient, ungrateful. We'd been married for 10 years, together for 13, and yet somehow, I felt trapped in the very life I once thought was perfect. So before you judge me, before you decide whether I'm heartless or just human, stay with me. Because what happened next didn't just break us. It shattered everything I believed about love, loyalty, and myself. And by the time you hear the whole story, you'll understand how even the strongest marriages can crack under the weight of one restless heart. 2 kids, a house that always smelled like fresh coffee, a husband who carried the weight of the world without complaint. Samuel worked from home so he could be there for the children, cooked most nights, and somehow kept our lives running like clockwork. Meanwhile, I chased my career, often exhausted, distracted, blind to the small, quiet ways he reached for me. And then one day it hit me, I couldn't remember the last time I had truly wanted him. Not that he had changed. I had. I craved to feel alive again, to feel beautiful, desired, unpredictable. And that's when he appeared, Maria. At first, it was innocent. A colleague from another department, messages about deadlines, casual work chatter. But slowly the conversation slipped past office hours. Compliments lingered, little notes about my voice, about the way I carried myself. Dangerous, intoxicating. I hadn't felt this spark in years. I started dressing differently for work, brushing on perfume I hadn't worn since my 20s, checking my phone with a mix of dread and hope, longing for his name to appear. Samuel didn't notice at first. Or maybe he did and chose not to see. He smiled, handed me coffee in the morning, talked about dinner plans or our daughter's school projects, all while guilt crept a little deeper under my skin. Then came the night that changed everything. I told Samuel I needed to run an errand for the house. Candles, towels, something mundane. He looked surprised, knowing how much I hated errands, but he didn't question me. "Drive safe, Claire," he said. I smiled, masking the lie. I spent nearly an hour getting ready. Makeup, perfume, and the red lingerie Samuel once told me stole his breath. I told myself it was for confidence. Deep down, I knew it was for Maria. We met at a quiet cafe. He looked taller in person, confident, older. He touched my arm as he spoke, and my pulse leapt, like I was 16 again. We laughed, flirted, talked, and then he showed me a painting he had brought, something abstract, dark, alive. "It reminds me of you," he said. A storm pretending to be calm. I don't know what came over me. Months of invisibility, longing, unacknowledged desires, they all hit me at once. When he leaned in, I should have stopped him. My heart screamed. I didn't. Not at first. Reality crashed down when the moment nearly passed. I pulled back, murmured something about needing to go home, bought the painting to make it seem normal, and left. My hands trembled the entire drive back. When I walked in, Samuel sat on the couch, TV low, kids asleep. He looked up, smiled faintly. "Did you get what you needed?" I nodded, barely meeting his eyes. That night, as I undressed, I glimpsed my reflection, the lingerie, the smeared lipstick, and I hated what I saw. I hadn't cheated. Not yet. But the intent? That alone was enough. The following days were heavy. Samuel grew quiet, watchful, sensing the shift in me, the distance I tried to hide. Our conversations shrank, colder, shorter. And still I kept talking to Maria. I convinced myself it was harmless now that I had drawn a line. But emotional affairs never truly end with words. They grow silently in the shadows. Then one evening he confronted me. Calm, quiet, no anger. Simple questions that cut deeper than any scream. Who is Maria? Why are you distant? Are you happy with me? I offered half-truths. Maria was a friend, work-related, just some space I needed. I said things like, I feel trapped. I just need to find myself. Truthfully, I wanted freedom. To stop being a wife, a mother, and remember who I had been before responsibility chained me. When he asked if I wanted to stay married, I said I didn't know. The look on his face that night, shattered, hollow, it haunts me still. And then the words that killed us, maybe we should try an open relationship. I don't know why I said it, testing him, punishing him, excusing my own guilt, but I did. And he agreed, quietly, defeatedly. If that's what you need, he said. That night we slept in the same bed but felt worlds apart. I could hear him breathing, steady, rhythmic, distant. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking, I had everything. Well, stability, family. And I had destroyed it chasing a spark that never existed. The next morning he made breakfast for the kids, smiled at me, eyes empty, resigned. That was when I realized I hadn't just hurt him. I had broken something sacred. Once something dies inside a marriage, it never truly returns. That night was when it all quietly fell apart. Samuel didn't understand freedom. He understood distance, the kind that grows when love becomes silence. Weeks passed in surreal emptiness. He stopped asking, stopped waiting, stopped reaching. He wasn't angry. He was hollow. And that hurt far more than any argument ever could. I told myself this was what I wanted. Independence, space, no expectations. But watching him care for our children alone, folding laundry like nothing had changed, chipped away at me. I thought freedom would make me feel alive. Instead, it made me invisible. I turned back to Maria, seeking spark, excitement. But it was gone. The man who once made me feel desired now made me feel cheap. He wanted more than I could give: emotion, time, promises. I ended it. I even bought another painting from him, just to close that chapter quietly. But guilt doesn't vanish with closure. It lingers, crawling into every corner of your life. Samuel and I became strangers under the same roof. He did everything for the house, cooked, cleaned, cared for the children, but he no longer looked at me like I was his wife. Every attempt to touch him made him freeze. When I spoke, he listened politely, but warmth no longer followed his words. The man who once adored me, who had loved me with every fiber of his being, was gone. His grief was visible in the quiet spaces between us. The way he stared at the wall late at night, the small exhale before leaving a room I entered. Living with him felt like living with a ghost I had created. One evening I broke. I don't even remember what set it off. Maybe it was the way he tucked our daughter's blanket in with so much care, smiling at her while I stood frozen at the door, feeling like an intruder in my own home. I ran to him, tears streaming, begging for forgiveness, trying to explain why I had done what I did. He didn't yell. He didn't shout. He looked at me with quiet sorrow. You tried to destroy a perfect life, Claire. And I don't know why either, he said. Those words shattered me. I offered counseling and he agreed. I promised him I wanted to make things right, that I didn't want anyone else. He nodded quietly, but his eyes didn't believe me. Later that night I tried again, lingerie, soft touches, kisses, but he pulled away. He said nothing, but the disgust in his gaze spoke volumes. He could no longer see me the way he once had. Even the children noticed the shift. One morning as Samuel dropped them at school, our daughter said softly, "I'm glad Mommy's smiling again." His flat reply, "Yeah," broke my heart. Exhaustion hung over him, not the kind from work, but the kind that comes from carrying too much hurt. Days blurred into fragile, false normalcy. Then one night he went through my things. He didn't confront me immediately, but I knew he had found something. Maybe a receipt from Maria's studio, maybe an old message. His silence that night was different. Knowledge replaced confusion. He knew. But he didn't react with anger. He reacted with calm control. He started going out more, hitting the gym, spending weekends visiting friends. He seemed lighter, as if losing faith in me had freed him. Every time he left the house, I felt the full weight of my own betrayal. He didn't need revenge. His peace was punishment enough. And then, the world I had tried to hide behind our walls collapsed publicly. Maria posted something on social media, vague but telling enough. A painting captioned with the muse who broke her vows. Mutual friends noticed. Colleagues whispered. And Samuel saw. That evening he came home quietly. His face unreadable, calm. "You need to leave the house for a week," he said. Not forever, just a week. You need to understand what life without this feels like. Without me. Without us. Without this home. He didn't slam doors. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. That made it worse. He was past anger. He was at peace, the kind of peace that comes from letting go. I packed a small bag, booked a hotel near work, and left. Alone in a cold room that night, I realized I had finally achieved the independence I thought I wanted, and hated every second of it. Samuel called once, not for me but for the kids. Their voices were cheerful, calm, happy. They didn't sound like they missed me. That cut deeper than anything Maria ever said. For the rest of the week, I lived in my guilt. Work, silence, ceiling staring. I imagined Samuel playing with our kids, laughing freely, my absence unnoticed. I imagined him realizing life was calmer without me. When I returned home, I half expected my bags to be by the door. Instead, he greeted me politely, helped with my luggage, made coffee. One for him, one for me. I cried silently as he handed mine over. You know, he said softly, the kids were calmer this week. Maybe peace isn't such a bad thing. I broke down again. I told him I wanted therapy. You should, he said, for yourself. That hurt more than if he had said it for us. I began therapy the next week. I tried to prove I could change, cooking more, cleaning more, leaving little notes, sending morning texts. He responded kindly, but the intimacy, the connection never returned. The man I married remained kind, gentle, patient, but the love we shared had shifted. It became polite coexistence. He no longer looked at me like a partner. He looked at me like someone he had once loved, someone slipping further from him with every passing day. He lifted weights, lost weight, smiled at texts, went out at night for air. And I knew if he found someone else, I had no right to feel anger. I had opened the door. He just walked through it better than I ever could. I watched him laugh again, not with me at all, but with our children, friends, his new circles. I realized I was no longer the center of his world. He had rebuilt himself from the ashes I left behind, while I remained standing in the ruins of my own making. Silence became the new normal. After that week away, home felt familiar but no longer mine. Samuel was polite, gentle, even, but warmth, love, and connection were gone. We moved around each other like distant planets, orbiting the same sun but never colliding. He lived. He thrived. And I watched. I wanted to fix things. I went to therapy. I tried to be the wife I used to be, the one who cared, who loved fully. I cooked dinners again, sent thoughtful little texts, even brought back family game nights. He participated. He laughed with the kids, but never with me. He never touched me again, not out of cruelty, but because that part of him, the part that loved me as a husband, had quietly died. We were married, yes, but we weren't husband and wife anymore. Still, there was a fragile thread between us, a small, almost comforting connection. We spoke politely, made plans for the kids, discussed bills, shared coffee in the mornings. But every time our eyes met, I could feel the invisible wall built from my lies, cemented by his silence. One evening, I watched him in the mirror as he got ready to go out. He looked good, confident, calm, free. I asked him where he was going. Just out with some friends, he said. He didn't owe me an explanation anymore. I knew it. And then the jealousy hit me like a punch to the chest, a cruel irony. I had wanted freedom once. Now I was trapped, caged by guilt, while he moved on, lighter with every step. That night, I pretended to sleep but couldn't look away. He moved differently now, unburdened, alive again. And in that quiet moment, I realized something that broke me even more than my guilt ever had. He was healing. Without me. He had rebuilt himself quietly, piece by piece. He hadn't drunk, hadn't spiraled, hadn't collapsed. He got stronger. I stayed the same, a walking reminder of everything he had overcome. Over time, our home regained its peace. Not because love had returned, but because acceptance had. He stopped waiting for me to change, and I stopped pretending I could. We created separate bank accounts, shared bills, shared chores, shared responsibilities. It was almost businesslike. One morning he said, "We'll keep things equal. Same in personal accounts, joint for expenses. Fair for both." I nodded, but I knew what he was really doing. He was preparing for the day he'd leave. He called it financial freedom. I called it emotional independence. He spent more time at the gym, got into incredible shape. Women noticed. I noticed. When he laughed, heads turned. When he spoke, people listened. He wasn't the quiet, homebound husband anymore. He had become the man I had destroyed, chasing a spark that was never real. And I watched it all from the sidelines, the glow-up, the confidence, the calm. He was living his best life, and I was nothing but a ghost in the background. Then, on Father's Day of all days, it all broke again. My mother called early that morning, bitter as always, reminding me that my father abandoned us and that I should be celebrated, not him. Her poison seeped into my mood, and I snapped. I yelled, vented my frustration at Samuel in front of the kids. He didn't yell back. He just looked at me with pity. Later, the kids hugged him and said, "Happy Father's Day." I couldn't bring myself to say anything. Their silence was louder than any apology I could have made. That night, I cried in the bathroom until my eyes swelled shut. I had become the woman I used to despise. Selfish, angry, full of excuses. Samuel didn't comfort me. He just gave me space, and somehow, that hurt the most. Weeks passed. Our talks became practical. Therapy schedules, school runs, bills. One night, I told him I might want to see other people someday. He didn't flinch. He simply said, "If that's who you are, then that's who you are." I said something stupid. "So, that makes me a slut." "I guess for now," he replied. No venom. No anger. Just exhaustion. That night, I realized something devastating. He no longer cared enough to be hurt. He later told me he had assumed I had cheated because he had. For a while, he believed my betrayal was a kind of revenge. But I hadn't. Not then, at least. When he said that, I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes, as if he finally pieced it together. He didn't hate me. He just pitied me. I started noticing the changes. He came home late from dancing, smelling like sweat and perfume that wasn't mine. Always calm. Always collected. No guilt. No explanations. Just peace. My husband had stepped fully into the open marriage I had once demanded. But instead of feeling betrayed, I felt replaced. He didn't rub it in. He didn't gloat. He simply lived. And I remained trapped in the story I had written with my own hands. Months later, Maria, the man I had once cheated with, reached out again. Publicly. Complaining about me ignoring him, hinting at our past. It was humiliating. Samuel saw it. That night, he came home as calm as ever and told me to leave, just for a week. "I want you to feel what it's like when I'm not here," he said. That week was unbearable. But this time, it wasn't punishment. It was a preview of the life that would eventually become permanent. When I returned, he hugged me, made coffee, and said quietly, "You're still my family, Claire. Just not my wife anymore." And in that moment, I knew it was over. Months later, the house is calm. We live like polite friends raising children. We smile for family photos, laugh at dinner, attend school events together. But at night, we sleep in separate rooms. Walls, choices, and distance keep us apart. He still checks on me when I'm sick. Still helps with chores. Still the kind, steady man I once loved, but no longer mine. He hasn't filed for divorce yet, but I know he will. I've seen the papers in his drawer when I clean. He doesn't even try to hide them anymore. Maybe he wants me to see them, to remind me that this life, this marriage, this home, is only temporary now. And I understand. I deserve that reminder. Sometimes I catch myself watching him with the kids, laughing, smiling, alive in a way he used to be. Before I broke him, he looks happy again. Not because of me, but in spite of me. And that is the kind of punishment that never ends. Once I craved passion. I craved excitement, freedom, the rush of feeling wanted. Now, I crave nothing more than his forgiveness. And I know I will never truly have it. He once told me, I deserve to feel loved and valued. Back then, I thought he was being dramatic. Now I know he was right. He deserved everything I couldn't give. And I will live with that truth for the rest of my life. I had a good man, a gentle man, a perfect family. And I destroyed it all chasing a feeling that wasn't even real. If I could go back, I would choose differently. But time doesn't forgive, and neither should he. So here I remain, a walking reminder of my own mistakes, living in the ruins of the life I burned down, watching the man I betrayed rebuild his peace, a peace that no longer includes me. If this story touched you, make sure to subscribe to Dark Infidelity Stories, where every betrayal is exposed, every lesson cuts deep, and every truth finds its voice. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support the channel and help these stories reach more people who need to hear them.